Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. We are simulcasting with KGRADB.com, KGRADB on Facebook, and on YouTube. My name is George Lopez. With me, as always, Mr. Ken DaCosta, out of the sweltering heat of Rhode Island, where I'm here in Florida. Cool, calm, and collected. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing very well. You know, it's that time of year, George. And I'm speaking, of course, of the Halloween season.
Oh, okay.
So on us. And like a lot of people out there, with the next 6 weeks, it is just going to be a blur with presentations, investigations, ghost hunts, things like that.
Yes. For you. For me, I have learned intently, and part of that is with our guest who's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes, Mike Ritchie from Charm City Paranormal, also known as Wolf Paranormal. But I wanted to tell you what I do now. Halloween Horror Nights. Almost everybody is aware of Halloween Horror Nights. And I used to go to this. But then as I grew older and the audience stayed younger, I would get very perturbed with some of the attitudes of these kids that were there at the park. So I thought best that from this point forth, and I love it, is I will click on Halloween Horror Nights tours, Halloween Horror Nights walkthroughs, and there are people that actually will walk you through all the haunted houses. They will walk you through the entire park. And you know what? I can pause and get up and go to the bathroom in my own house. That's the kind of investigating I'm enjoying right now.
Boy, that sounds like a get off my lawn kind of rant if I ever heard one, dude.
Yes, it gets to that point in time. Don't forget, everybody, hit that subscribe button. Also, the thumbs up for our content, and a reminder bell for upcoming shows and return shows that'll be happening here very, very soon. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But thank you guys there in the comments. I see our regular group of misfits have arrived. You guys are always awesome, and your questions to our guests are also always great. Hey, you know what I finished and I thought was probably one of the best seasons so far was Cobra Kai season 5.
Cobra Kai?
On Netflix. And I really, again, there's a certain demographic, age bracket that knows that show, the movie Karate Kid, so well. Karate Kid 2, Karate Kid 3, the new Karate Kid, and then to be able to get involved with watching a show that is completely based on nostalgia. And I really enjoyed the hell out of that. And then tonight I got very pissed off because I started watching a movie called Moonfall on HBO. And it basically is describing the moon as a Dyson sphere. And if you don't know what a Dyson sphere is, it's basically a contraption that has harnessed a star and used that power for their own use, whatever it may be. And the moon is actually a Dyson sphere, and it's now mechanically starting to fall apart. I'm only halfway through, but it's going to get the conspiracy theorists up in arms once again. So I'm waiting to see how that's going to pan out. We should save that discussion again when next time we have UFO personalities on the show, Ken.
That's coming. But, I'm going to steer clear of that for now. You got to let me know how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. See, anybody that's watched it already, please don't spoil it for me in the chat. Justin Tier, that movie pissed me off. Don't get me started. The only reason I'm watching it is because Sam from Game of Thrones is in it, and the guy who played in The Conjuring, who played Ed Warren, is in it. So there you go.
All right.
In any event, let's move on with our show tonight. He's in the green room. He is not green by any means whatsoever, and you can tell by the amazing production of what they do on YouTube with Charm City Paranormal. This is an individual, again, who Ken and I will tend to get annoyed with because of his youth. To have the abilities, the technical skill, the know how to do what he has done so far, plus on top of that, getting out there and investigating bravely in some notoriously haunted locations. He's got guests that join along with him to investigate, but more than anything else, what drew our attention to this individual, only 2 years really is the age of the YouTube show, but every single one of them is engrossing. It's at that level, production level, that you would see normally on television shows and networks. But we're so happy to have him join us tonight for the first time, and hopefully not the last, as I'm sure there's going to be further investigations coming forward. Please welcome to the show from Charm City Paranormal, Mr. Mike Ritchie. Good evening, sir.
Hey, gentlemen, how's it going?
Hello, Michael. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Just peachy keen. Couldn't be better.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Just want to let everybody know ahead of time, no, this is not Nick Groff in disguise. Just in case there were a couple of people out there, conspiracy theorists, right off the bat. He's got that voice, he's got that persona, and he's certainly got that studio set up just right. So don't be confused, though. Why don't we start with that, Mike, and give everybody a little bit of background. Where you're from, how you got yourself started here in the paranormal.
Sure. So I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I was born here, raised in North Carolina, kind of went back and forth between the two, eventually settled in Baltimore about 6 years ago. Been here ever since. And getting into the paranormal was more or less an accident. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. Originally, I was going to do urban exploration. I was going to try to utilize my skills in photography and capture creepy, rotten, decayed places in the way that I see them. The very first time I decided to go out in urbex, I ended up having this almost life-changing experience with the paranormal. I was more or less ran out of the facility that I was in, and when I went back in, there were these giant, and I mean giant footprints. They looked like bare feet leading from a puddle towards me. And up until that point, I had never experienced anything paranormal in my life, maybe like 2 or 3 times ever. But I come from an IT background, so my whole like thought process is logic and reasoning, and always trying to play it off or write it off as like, oh, there's an explanation for these things. So my attention was never focused on the paranormal. But when that happened, there was no explaining it. There was no rational conclusion to why it happened. It just happened. And it drew me in. I was just endlessly fascinated by the whole situation. And ever since then, I've been investigating.
I have to say before I let Ken take over here too, it's one of the things that we kind of get giddy about and love to hear, because there are so many people out there that are naysayers and they don't believe in these anomalies occurring, the spirit phenomena that you have experienced. And we've always said the same thing time and again. Until you do, until you do have that experience, you're going to probably be that way or feel that way. Now, there are some people who are standoffish and don't want to attempt or dive in. There's sometimes it's just unavoidable, such as in your case. And in doing this, it becomes a little bit addictive, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I go, if I'm not researching locations or reading about the history of paranormal and entities and practices, I'm going out investigating or reviewing footage or investigating my own house. I mean, it's a lifestyle at this point.
Well, I could tell you this before I turn it over to Ken. I want you to be aware of the fact that Ken DaCosta, though he's not a household name, he should be, after doing this as far as investigating since 1976.
Close.
In that area, 40 some years he's been doing this, a wealth of information. And, I'm looking forward to seeing the melding. What, you're in your 20s still at this time, Mike?
27, yeah.
So this should be an interesting Yeah, we're both going, you bastard, you bastard.
Got T-shirts for older than this kid.
But I'd like to see this exchange of minds right now, so I will turn it over to Ken for the moment. Go ahead, Ken.
All right, thanks, George. Hey, Mike, again, welcome. What I wanted to start off with you on right away, because as well as an investigator and a producer, I look at you through the lens of a filmmaker.
Mhm.
And years ago, probably 10, 12 years, it was at its apex where everybody and their brother was trying to get a TV show, a paranormal TV show, and they were literally crawling over each other because they were going to be the next big paranormal stars.
Right.
And then YouTube came along, which was a platform for people to be able to create and put content without the pressure of a network telling you how they want to tell the story, what they want to show, what they want to include. Now, I mean, as a creator who has now an opportunity to tell their own stories and have creative control over that, what's this medium meant to you in terms of your own creative abilities?
So, I mean, it's always changing. I mean, we're evolutionary creatures. Our minds are always changing. Our beliefs, our motives are constantly evolving. And when I started doing this, it was more or less a way for me to express creativity, to show things through my perspective and my experiences. And
Right.
I feel like over time, really, it hasn't changed much. Like it's all about it boils down to being able to express myself creatively and to share my art the way that I see it. And I think that it's really important for me to continue on that and to build my foundation on just being a creative and expressive individual. I play music, I draw, I paint, I do
Yeah.
digital art, photography, things like that. And really, like the evidence, the videos, excuse me, the way that I produce everything is really just how I see it and how I want to express it. It's not I'm not intending to be like, this the next big ghost hunter or like the best creative out there by any means. It's just it's how I see things and how I choose to express it.
Right.
So yeah, it really it just for me it's total unrestricted creative freedom that means so much to me, and that's why I continue to do it. And I think that's important. I think people should just do it because they want to and not
Yeah.
because they're trying to get famous or be the next big ghost hunter or whatever the motives may be.
Yeah. I think that what you do, the correct way to do it is let your body of work speak for itself.
Exactly.
And the kind of vibe that I get from watching your videos is you're taking everybody on the trip with you. You're essentially trying to take your audience, your viewers, put them in the room with you, put them in the
Mhm.
location with you, and experience that whole thing organically through your eyes and the eyes of the camera. Um, but you have such a good eye for this. I mean,
Thank you.
where did this develop? Did it come from the idea you talked about photography before?
Mhm.
Just, looking at the world around you, seeing a shot that somehow speaks to you and it means something to you. Do you kind of cross that over into the art of filmmaking as well? Like setting up shots, and this is how I want to show the audience this particular hallway or door or room, whatever that might
Mhm.
be. Does one translate to the other?
Well, I'm like incredibly picky and critical of the way that I want to represent and express myself. The way that I look at it is like, if I'm not going to watch it, if I'm not going to be proud of it, how can I expect anybody else watching it to be engrossed in it or be proud of it or enjoy
Right.
it?
Sure.
So I study a lot. I study cinematographers that have nothing to do with the paranormal. I learn a lot from like veterans that have been doing this for longer than I've been alive. And I try to apply those techniques to the paranormal content. And I assume that it works really well because people seem to like it. But all of my skill set and teachings come from outside of the paranormal. It's all based around like filmmakers and cinematographers and things like that. And again, it just goes back on just being being super critical of my work.
Hmm.
I don't want to present something that's, more or less half baked. Like, I'm not just going to cut some stuff together real quick and say, here's a YouTube video. This is permanent. I want to look back on this in 20 and 30 and 40 years from now and be proud of the work that I've done. And that's why I go to such great lengths to create what I create.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for that relevancy, like you say, 20 years from now, where what you're doing is kind of timeless. Let me ask you this. Obviously, beyond access to a location, what is it that you look for in a particular location where you may approach the owners or the stewards of that property and say, hey, listen, um, I'd like to do a project on this particular place. Do you have a certain criteria? What is it that is more appealing to you where you say, yeah, I want to give that place a shot?
Really, like, I would say half of it is being drawn to the location itself. I mean, there's some places that I go to where we'll film once and we might get a great video out of it, maybe not. And then I'm just like, okay, that was great. Maybe one day we'll revisit it. But there's always like those one or two locations where I will go home and I will think about it before bed. I'll wake up and think about it, and I feel drawn to it. I don't know if it's like a spiritual thing or if it's the experiences that I had there. Maybe it's a bit of both. But really it's going into these locations or going near them, being in the same area as them. I don't know. It's a very spiritual thing for me. I'm a very spiritual person. I do believe in the afterlife. I believe in these entities, these energies, and I feel like some of these places more or less draw me into them versus me being just like, oh, this is a creepy building with a terrible dark story that will scare people, because that's not my goal. I don't want to just harbor on like all the terrible stuff of the paranormal and demons and murder and death, and like I want to tell a story. I want people to feel the experiences I've felt it. So sometimes I just get drawn into these places and I obsess over it, and I can't sleep until I at least get some kind of conclusive answer as to can we go in there or not.
Right. I mean, sometimes, oftentimes, fear, the demonic, the negative, oppressive, it's kind of the low hanging fruit. And
Hmm.
it's an easy way to draw people in just because they're enamored with that type of thing. You're watching Dead Air. Our guest tonight is Mike from Charm City Paranormal. Um, in the section of our YouTube, we have listed some links to Charm City's YouTube page and some of Mike's favorite investigations that he's picked out for us. So give that a listen or give that a look. And after tonight, for those of us in our audience who maybe have not seen your work yet, what can they expect? How would you describe your approach to an investigation beyond the filmmaking, but your own personal methodology, if you want to use that word, when you go into a location? How do you conduct your investigations, conduct yourself for that matter?
I like to try and stay as grounded as possible and try to stay focused on the moment and not let fear take over the investigation. Um, I feel like if you have a calm approach to what you're doing and you're able to get interaction without, being antagonistic or unreasonable, or, you know, just pestering the spirits that are there, you tend to get a better response rate and you tend to get more interaction from whatever excuse me, is there. So I try to approach this from a very grounded, calm, rational perspective. Again, my background was in IT. I've been in computers for 15 years. I did in a professional capacity for 9 years.
You're a
So
critical thinker.
yeah, everything is very like get to a resolution, find the logical reasoning behind it. And so I try to take that same approach from IT and fixing computers to paranormal investigating. Sometimes it's fun to watch people get scared and freak out. I mean, I still get a kick out of taking green investigators and they get touched or they see a shadow and they're like, "Oh my god." That still puts a smile on my face, but all the time, constantly screaming at the camera, constantly screaming at devices going off. It's just I don't feel like that's grounded, calm way of approaching it. And I feel like that also will lead to consequences later on down the road for like spiritual drain, bad paranormal hangover, all that kind of stuff. It's like a low vibration kind of attitude to have, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So just very grounded, respectful, calm approach to an investigation.
Right. As a spiritual person, a lot of the places that you visited, that you shared with us, don't have happy stories. And
No.
we're going to, at some point tonight, break down some of those locations and have you tell us a little bit about them, your own experiences there and your own thoughts. But when you go into these places as a spiritual person, do you feel a certain sense of responsibility to whomever might remain there in spirit, who's endured some awful things in their lives at these particular places? Does that inform your approach to be a little bit more conciliatory and a little more respectful? Maybe ask someone if they need help rather than just call on them to do tricks and move things and make bangs and things like that. Do you find yourself in that space when you go into certain places where the background didn't have a happy ending?
Absolutely. I myself come from a pretty rough childhood and background. I didn't really have like a calm, easy upbringing, and it was very difficult for me to get through, the ages of like 10 to 23, 24. And, I the way that I look at it, everybody needs somebody to talk to. And people want to be acknowledged, people want to be heard. And I feel like when I go to these places with these dark, heavy histories, there's spirits that are trapped there or energies that are trapped there that just want to be heard. They just want a voice, and they want somebody to talk to and rationalize with and reason with and just say, hey, I just want you to acknowledge that I exist and that I'm here. And I feel like when I can do that for whatever spirit or spirits are there, I don't know if it necessarily helps them, but in my mind, I feel like I'm just trying to help and give them a voice. And yeah, just reason with them and let them know that I know that they exist and I acknowledge their existence. And I don't want them to feel like that they have to go the rest of eternity or however long they choose to stay there, knowing that nobody cares about them or
Right.
nobody wants to acknowledge them. It's heartbreaking. It really is. Like some of these locations, I get very emotional off camera just because it's so much that comes on at once. I'll start the investigation feeling this heaviness, and as I progress and ask questions and get responses to those questions, sometimes I don't want answers to it. It just becomes so much because it reminds me of the really rough, like hard upbringing that I had. And then
Sure.
just to imagine that I got through it, but that these spirits or these souls spent their whole lives going through it, and now they're in the afterlife going through it. It's like that crushes me.
Yeah, I mean, we get to go home,
Yeah.
and that's fine. We do what we need to do, and we thank them and we walk away. But for whatever they are there for, whether it's being grounded in a location, at best you hope they have free will and they
Hmm.
can come in visitation when maybe they're called upon. But probably the worst thing as an investigator is to entertain the idea that these people are, for lack of a better word, stuck in a
Absolutely.
place that did not treat them very well, or something incredibly traumatic and tragic ended their lives there. And I think
Mhm.
it can be an overwhelming feeling if you have any empathy at all as a human being to understand. Again, I talked about, so many people go in and ask spirits to do parlor tricks for them, move this, bang on that. And we try to ease into those type of things as giving spirits an option. Maybe, listen, here's some things that maybe you can do to acknowledge us, but we're not going to spend a lot of time asking you to do tricks for us because we kind of respect what you had to go through here. We're
Mhm.
not your wooden masters. You set up, you do a lot of POVs. you do some stationary cameras, things like that. And you're like, I'm sure, me, where we set up an awful lot of cameras to document because my particular group believes in that. Whether it's 360-degree technology that we're using with GoPros or stationary cameras, high definition handhelds, there is always the type of thing where you see something or hear something, but you didn't have a camera on it and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a recorder on it. And it's just the nature of the beast. And you're kicking yourself later. Well, of course, I didn't have a camera on it. But when those things happen and you chalk them up as personal experiences, are they any less meaningless because, well, you know, you didn't happen to document them, so therefore you can't show the world that? Does it minimize those in any way?
For me, no, because I mean, I got my start from a personal experience, and I have it recorded, but you can't like you can hear what I heard very faintly on the camera microphone, but not enough to justify what it felt like in person. And for me, I'm like I know everybody's trying to prove that the afterlife is real and that ghosts are real and that they exist, but for me, I think it became more of just almost like a I don't want to say a paranormal vlog, so to speak, but like just documenting my personal experiences with this stuff and showing through my eyes what it looks like when we investigate, when we find evidence, things like that. So when a personal experience happens, and it happens very often, like almost every investigation, um, I know it's real to me, and I don't have any desire to prove that to anybody or to argue that point with anybody who may not believe me. I
Right.
just I don't have the energy for it. I don't care. If you believe me, great. I'm not lying to you, but if you think I am, that's also your choice. I mean, we're creatures of free will. You're just as capable of believing me as you aren't. So I mean, I would lose sleep if I, tried to prove everything all the time to everyone that crossed my path. So I just
No,
don't.
I mean it's a fool's errand, you know, and it's something
Absolutely.
I gave up on long ago with this
Yeah.
idea of peer review and everything like that because I don't want to have to take time to explain to everybody that every question you're asking right now, I asked myself. We have been through voice analysis program. We the steps we've taken are pretty stringent. So if I put something out there, it's because we believe in it.
Hmm.
Put it forth. But unfortunately, Mike, you know yourself what happens, especially now on social media. People are so proficient with film editing that they can create something that looks real.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think what's happened, unfortunately, is we become cynical because we're fed so much bull out there that a great piece of documented video evidence may come along and we're just conditioned to throw it on that pile of, yeah, somebody faked this, somebody made it up, somebody photoshopped it. And it's unfortunate that there's so much of that going on out there because it's not doing any justice to, like I say, maybe that 1 out of 100 piece that you go, wow. Unfortunately, it's immediately dismissed.
Yep. It happens all the time, and I see it all the time. Being, over 2 years now into editing, which I've done editing in the past for small projects that are totally irrelevant to this. I mean, video game montages for friends and little projects for people at school, but I see it all the time. Like there's one that I actually just came across recently, and all they did was key out themselves out of the video, and they started throwing stuff around their house, and you can see the keyframes moving, and you can clearly see anybody that has any sort of editing capability or skill knows what keyframing is, and you can see it immediately, but it has millions of views and tens of thousands of people being like, wow, this is the most
I know.
insane paranormal poltergeist activity I've ever seen. And I'm like, really? Really? Like, come on. So I do it all the time. Like 99% of the stuff that I see that's caught on cam, I'm like, this isn't real. And it could be, like you said, it could be that 1% that is.
We're going to toss it because we're
Yep.
conditioned to think in terms of bullshit.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's sad. A cautionary tale here. One of the places that we frequent a lot happens to be right here in Rhode Island, the Conjuring House, as it's known. And it's come under new ownership, and we've become great friends with the new owner. And there is so much out there about this place. And by the way, if you're ever in my neck of the woods, I'd love to bring you there.
I want to go there so bad. That's literally my top of the bucket list location right now.
Dude, we'll have to talk because we do public events there. We do our own investigations. So I'm sure I can make that happen for you.
I would love that.
Go away. He hasn't been there.
George is like, wait, what? You're not going to include me?
See, my train of thought is derailed now. Oh,
let me explain something.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, we're going for the book. You're probably the only person who hasn't heard this story. I'll wait.
I wrote a book with Andrea Perrin. I wrote a book in a flicker with Andrea Perrin. I've still not been to the Conjuring House.
Are you serious?
I just wanted to just put that out there into the universe. You guys in the chat, don't even.
I have to GoFundMe to pay for George to get to Rhode Island. But what the owner is doing right now, there is, Mike, I'm sure you've seen him. If you're a consumer of this, you've seen all the things from the Conjuring House. People are getting possessed and scratched and thrown around and really emotional about it, which is the impact of that movie it had. But the current owner is really trying to put that sort of to the side and tell the truth about the history, who actually may have passed, and more importantly, who didn't pass away there. Because these stories become so conflated with each other and they become canon that someone hung themselves here and someone died there and someone was murdered here. And she's taken great lengths to tell the real story of this place. And believe me what I tell you, it's an extremely active place without all the other bells and whistles that people add to this. So I think there are locations out there who do embrace the real history behind these places and want to be something more than just the spooky house down the road.
Right.
Which is why I really embrace the idea that you like to tell the background of this. And I know it's a common trope on every paranormal show. I get that. They tell the history of the place, and for the most part, everybody is like, yeah, let's just fast forward through this, get to the ghost hunt. We want to see some evidence, because as consumers, we don't have the attention span.
No.
Nonetheless, those kind of things are important to talk about the historical significance of a place rather than just the ghosts and the ghouls. And you do that very well. So my question, I guess, at the end of this is how significant and what does that mean to you in terms of your research before you even enter into a place to find out why would I want to go there, or what is it about this particular place that's significant, that means something?
I mean, we've always, just as a society, have been drawn to storytelling and are fascinated by the history of the people that came before us. At least I am. I've always been a huge history nerd. I mean, going through high school, there was stuff that I was learning in high school that I was already reading about in middle school, stuff in middle school that I was already reading about in elementary school, because I love history. I love consuming the tales of the people before us. And I think it's really important to be completely honest about what we're finding through documented history to share with these haunted locations, because it could lead to either accurate evidence based on the historical findings, or it could potentially change, how people approach it going forward. Again, this stuff is permanent. unless I choose to delete it off of YouTube, which I'm not going to. If somebody comes across my video and I'm sharing history that I found to be accurate, and then there's 20 other videos out there that are telling a completely different story, then
Mm,
it causes people to start having like a critical discussion with themselves, who's being honest and who's not being honest, who's telling the real history, who's making stuff up. And then
right.
if they decide to go and investigate it, and then they find that our evidence and our findings are the accurate, truthful history to the place versus the other 10 or 20 people who are just trying to sell fear and terror, then I feel like I'm sort of doing my part in preserving the historical significance of these locations. I don't know if you had a chance to check out the Hinsdale video that I made,
Did.
but that is a prime example of just echo chamber of misinformation, because we get all these tales about how there's like an Indian burial ground directly underneath the house or right next to it, that it was an inn where two brothers ran the inn and stagecoaches would get lured up there to spend the night, and then they would rob them and kill them and hang them from a tree and like all these things. And it's not that I didn't believe it, but I definitely took it with a grain of salt. And then
Hmm.
I ended up going into the like actual, it was, I can't remember the name, but it was a historical society who has been documenting that whole area of Hinsdale and Western New York for decades. And they have like tons of land deeds, records, birth and death certificates, newspaper articles, all this stuff that basically says everything about what is being told about this house is a blatant lie.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, like, is this house just being sold on fear and scary history to draw people in to make money? Or do you actually care about the historical significance of this land, why the hauntings are here, and do you want to preserve that through ghost hunters and through storytelling? So I made the video the way that I did. I tried to be as like non-biased and respectful about it as possible. But to be completely honest, I was a little frustrated to hear all this stuff about this place, go in with a bit of like preconceived notions, thinking like, damn, we're in for a crazy night, and then it not be a crazy night, and find out that 90% of the history being told is either just outright wrong or exaggerated for scare factor. So I try to preserve the history as honestly as I find it. I'm not going to make anything up or change anything, or like you said, the Conjuring House with demon scratches and possessions and all that stuff. I'm still waiting to get possessed myself, so until I see it, I don't believe any of it. Like I'm one of those people. I'm hard-headed as hell. I have to do it and see it myself in order to believe you. There's no amount of stories that will convince me that whatever you're trying to tell me is real.
Right. In 47 years of doing this, a common question I'm asked is, how many times have you encountered anything demonic? And my answer is simple. It is absolutely zero. Now, it could be next week, but I think, excuse me, I think those things are overplayed. Um, Unfortunately, what happens is the stories are so good that this is why people want to go, just for, the adrenaline rush, or just,
Hmm.
for the sake of the thrill. And what they do is end up perpetuating the same untruths and the same embellishments and the same legends until someone like hopefully yourself steps in with a good enough platform and a good enough way of telling the story that everybody takes it the right way. They go, oh, okay. In terms of the Conjuring House, there's not a witch there who stabbed an infant with a sewing needle. Okay, it's like we need to.
Was that
We
one of
need.
the stories?
Oh, that was the story. Bathsheba Sherman was the witch who was the last thing I read. She was hung, convicted of being the witch. There was no such trial. The poor woman, to have that attached to her is just infuriating. And if she was a witch, for one thing, she wouldn't be buried in the cemetery she's at next to her husband and child in consecrated land. In terms of Native American burial grounds, it's like, dude, you're from Maryland, I'm in the Northeast. The entire East Coast is Native American burial grounds
Yeah.
everywhere. Before I bring George back in here, the last thing I want to end with. Now, you've combined two passions of yours, filmmaking and investigating. What do you think it is about the paranormal that's so gripping to people? Is it just as simple as a mystery that may not have a resolution, or is it just we kind of get in touch with our darker side a little bit and we just like to go there right up to the line, but then we, okay, I'm done? What is so gripping, do you feel? And again, you do it so well, Mike.
Thank you.
Really, really do. Because I've seen a lot of people who try very hard, but they just don't have that thing. They don't have the eye or the sense of telling a story. Because at the end of the day, it's all about telling a story. But what is so gripping about this? I mean, 2020, you started 50,000 subscribers already. Obviously, you're doing something right.
That's a tough one. Because really, the answer could be based off of personal experience. It could be based off of general consensus. I think people are drawn to the paranormal because it's an endless pursuit. It doesn't matter how many answers you get, you're always going to have another question following up that you'll probably never get an answer to. It's just an endless chase of discovery, of learning about the unknown, becoming comfortable with the unknown. And I don't know, things about you change. You learn new things about yourself, about how you view the world, how you view other people around you. It's just, there's so many things that go into it. I don't think it could be boiled down to just one reason why people are so fascinated by it. But I guess if I had to, I would say that it's the endless pursuit of the unknown. Just trying to find an answer that we will most likely never find until we get there. And when we get there, we're not going to come back here and tell you guys. We're going to be too busy over there having fun. So
I might come back and spill the beans. I don't know.
Maybe.
While I think about that, I'm going to bring George in right now. So, Mr. Lopez, sir, it's all yours.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ken. Again, for those of you just joining us, you are watching Dead at Full Spectrum. This is a unique experience for us having Mike from Charm City Paranormal join us. We've only done this, if memory serves correctly, one other time, Mike, with the Foreman brothers, who do a YouTube channel also, and again, that production value was quite impressive enough for us to reach out. We have been very fortunate over the years. This is now going on, I think, gosh, I want to say 14 years that Dead Air's been around in one way, shape, or form. And over the years, we've been privileged enough to have some of the greatest names in the field, the recognizable names: John Zaffis, Steve DeShavi, Nick Groff, Grant Wilson, Jason Hawes have all been on and talked to us about the field. But it is a completely different animal when you're talking about investigations versus television, versus the entertainment value side of it. But there is a necessary crossover, case in point, with what you're doing. Before you came on the air with us, and just after you came on the air, you mentioned about this being one of the busiest months that you have had so far. From a technical side, give us a little bit of insight for you with your Twitter account, Instagram, TikTok. How many hours do you spend a day or in a week on social media doing promotions?
Oh, God. Anywhere from, I'd say in a week, about 40 to 60 hours a week. And that's networking, creating content,
It's a full-time job.
photos. Yeah.
Do you find that is the pull or the draw why the people are gravitating to your channel? I mean, realistically, what are you, 15, 16, 17, 19 videos is all you have really on the channel. It's not hundreds and hundreds. You know how some people do oversaturation.
Yeah.
And then they just hope that by those numbers. So what we're talking about here is quality content, not quantity content. So how do you explain what's drawing them all into your particular channel?
I don't know, honestly. It kind of goes back on just wanting to represent myself in the best possible way.
Good.
And just, I guess, observing other people and watching other people either, and I'm not like saying this as a way of hoping that it happens or only watching this, but I've seen enough people fail and like kind of fall short on certain things to where I can kind of, I experience it through them. I don't need to do the same thing myself to learn my lessons. I can learn my life lessons and my tips and tricks through just watching and observing. I'm a very observant person. So just observing and seeing what works and what doesn't, and then kind of going off of that. But again, just I guess maybe it's the look or the quality of the work, or I I couldn't tell you. I'm just thankful, honestly, that so many people choose to watch it and be a part of it.
At the young age of 27 years old, for us, for Ken and I anyway, um, I can say that you certainly represent what we would call an old soul, and I'm sure we're not the first ones to ever tell you that, but it is something that is qualified through the experiences and the things, the painstaking things experience wise you've had, again, from age 10 to 24, 25 years old, and bringing that to the table, to this field, is I think a testimonial that you're an open book with regards to that, and that says a lot to your viewers also, that you're somebody who is coming from a genuine perspective, that you're not creating a persona in front of the camera. You are who you are. How does that make you feel?
It feels good, honestly. I'm with the background that I came from and just the things that I had to endure. I had to grow up at a very young age, unfortunately, and I didn't really have like a normal teenage life or young adult life. I was just constantly either working or, you know, tending to my siblings or, just basically being an adult when I should have been a kid. And at least at that point, by the time I did become an adult, it it helped me get to where I'm at now. I mean, really like growing into the lifestyle that I had versus what I have now. I think all that stuff prepared me for this in a way that I think it was sort of meant to be, with the whole paranormal thing more or less finding me with that event happening and it finding me. It just felt right. It felt right to do. And I believe in being completely honest with people and being as
Sure.
genuine as I can. I don't have anything to hide. If you ask me, I'll tell you. And yeah, I think that's important. I think it's important to just be a genuine, honest human being and to help people relate to you the same way that you relate to them. And you can't do that if you're pretending to be something that you're not. So,
That's an important part of being just a human being and a decent human being. And in regards to the paranormal too, it is a rare find. So that does make you again somebody that is admirable for the field. And we're thrilled to have a chance now to meet you and bring you into the fold. Also, I
likewise.
I would like to know again, for the time frame, you're still somewhat of a I don't want to use the word amateur in the field, but you're still beginning out far advanced. You haven't gone through the orb phase, right? Where you're taking pictures of orbs, which is really dust. You're like, no. You're far advanced past that point in time, which already makes you ahead of the game. Um, but when we talk about the captures and experiences that you are having and hearing the stories regarding whether it's the equipment that you're using, the disembodied voices, the EVPs that you're capturing, um, do you still, and I had an epiphany, I think in the second hour, and we'll give you a whole 3 minutes to prepare, whether or not you want to reverse and ask questions. Ken and I combined together probably have near to 75 years of experience, over 100 years of life. So
Jeez.
anything that you want to, throw at us that we can, offer back up to you, we'd love to do that. But not saying that we're the oracle. We're not the know all see all. But this is what has changed in my mindset, and I wonder whether or not you're teetering on this. Also, you're going out these investigations and you're making contact and you're getting the stories. A lot of the times when I did back in the day residential cases, and then I did commercial cases, and I traveled Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, Rolling Hills Asylum, Myrtle's Plantation, Eastern State Penitentiary, Stanley Hotel. Um, the list goes on. It was, let me find the evidence, and maybe we can get the answers about what happens after we die. That went away probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and I started on this crusade of, when are we going to get to the point in time, location, procedure, equipment, or individual that is going to make consistent contact, where not what happens after we die, but where is my relative? Are they okay?
Hmm.
I'd like to speak to them. I'd like to understand. Now, you can talk theologically that people, well, it's just a demon that is impersonating your family member.
Of course.
We're always going to go down that road. There's no way around that. Even if they visibly stood right in front of you, if you have a clergy right next to you to say, the Pope could be right next to you, that's a demon impersonating your family member.
Of course.
It's always going to be
It's
down that road.
necromancy.
But I want your take on the direction to go, is because these stories also could be a demonic fabrication.
Hmm.
The little child's voice, the crying woman, whatever the situation is, it all could be manipulation. Personally, I don't buy that. You're going into a place such as um, the Hinsdale house, and you're getting EVPs. So that demon just hangs out at this abandoned location for that random investigator to come in. Makes no sense to me at all. If
No.
anything, it would be something in a residential case that people might be dealing with. But your take on your progression on this, is it still storytelling time? Is it what happens after we die answers, or is it connections to people, whether it be people you're familiar with or these strangers at these strange locations?
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of everything. I want to feel a connection to the afterlife, and try to have some kind of comfort and understanding, knowing that when I finally go, that there's going to be a next phase in all of this. I want to help other people try to understand this from a more grounded, rational perspective, even though the paranormal is everything but rational. It's a bit contradicting in a sense, but again, it just goes back on that whole like fear mongering and like terror based television and movies and things like that. I don't want to be remembered as that person, and I don't want people to look at my content as solely for a way to get a quick scare or get a jump scare or whatever. So I want to not only connect with the energies in these places, but I want other people to feel that connection as well. I want people to not be so afraid of this when they approach it, because there's so many curious minds out there that are afraid to take the next step because of, everything's a demon and everything is evil and you'll get attachments and you'll get possessed and kill your family in their sleep or whatever. Like none of that stuff happens. And if it does, it's like a once in a lifetime case, and they end up making movie anthologies about it. And even then, that's half of it's probably fabricated anyways. So I want to be remembered as an honest individual who's just trying to get some understanding and clarity of the next phase in our journey, while also giving that same sense of clarity and comfort to others that watch it.
From an investigative standpoint, and the things you've experienced so far, what is the next experience, level of experience, that you are mostly pining for to experience at a location? And is there a, this is it, if this happens, I'm quitting the paranormal? What are those two for you?
Mm, for me, my next phase or next like step up, I want to I want to see something that I don't question. Like I don't the peripherals. I've only seen something like face on or head on,
Yeah.
maybe two or three times ever, and it's one of those situations where you see it and your eyes shift for a second, and you look back and it's gone.
Right.
Like I want to see something. I want it to see me, and I want to solidify in my mind, like, okay, I definitely just saw something that is no longer there. As far as quitting, I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I don't think I ever will, unless I get too old to like walk or move, or I don't know.
i've
I want to do this forever if I can.
I've been on that same ledge as you with regards to that peripheral view and a quick thought, and your mind starts to question, until being up at Rolling Hills Asylum and seeing an actual shadow crawl out of a room and just staring at it the entire time. And as it's crawling out, I get up and run towards it, and it crawled back into the room. And there was no doubt in my mind after that point in time. There was no eye trickery or anything at that point. And, there are levels to this that will certainly make your hair stand on end. But as I said at the beginning of the show, though, there is unquestionably some sort of an addiction to this field for that next level, for that next experience. Or if you have a profound experience, you want to go back and experience that again or something similar to it. Now, you are at this point in time, and we're coming to our break here shortly, you are at this point in time doing a lot of this in the northeastern area of the United States. Are you looking to branch further? Right now, I think you're pretty much in the door at the Conjuring House, but any areas across the country right now that you would still love to go and visit, a primary location?
I haven't done like a whole lot of research outside of my northeastern home, and I don't know. I'm open to going literally anywhere. I will go across the country. I will go Midwest, up high, down low. I mean, I don't have a limit on this. And, I don't have kids. I have a dog. I'm single, so I don't have any like home or relationship obligations to tend to. If I want to just grab my bag and go out ghost hunt, I have the luxury of doing that. So, yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'm open to ideas.
Ken, come on back on here for us for a second. Because I asked Ken a question, really. Ken, are there any other locations in the New England area that he can visit?
No, none.
No.
Nope.
No, I mean,
Enough to keep you busy for a couple of weeks at least.
standard open invitation for you, Mike. Anytime that we get a hold of each other, reach out. And some of these locations, if you deem them worthy of filming your experiences there, we can make that happen for you as well. But love to host you up here.
Yeah.
I'd love to come up. And I believe you, I think, was that you that I was talking to that gave me your cell phone number in the email?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure during our break, I'll shoot you a text so that way you have mine as well. And we'll definitely keep in touch, man.
Yeah. By the way, Ken loves drunk dialing in the middle of the night. So feel free to give him a call. We're going to go to break here, guys. When we get on the other side, we'll be talking again, continue with our very special guest, Mike from Charm City Paranormal. You are watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. Mike's going to be asking us questions next. Stay with us.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you'd like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
Hi, I'm Austin Butler from Baz Luhrmann's new film, Elvis.
Tomorrow, all of America will be talking about Elvis Presley.
As a blood donor himself, Elvis shared the gift of life with patients in need and asked others to do the same. We're encouraging you to give blood this summer. Please visit redcrossblood.org/ElvisMovie today to learn more.
You're You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
All right, guys, welcome back to the second hour of our show. Our very special guest joining us here back in just a few minutes, Mike from Charm City Paranormal. But before we bring our guest back, again, as Ken said at the beginning of the show, we are slowly creeping up on the Halloween time frame. And no better time than the return of one of our very, very special shows here on Dead Air Full Spectrum. Ken, you want to bring it up and talking about it?
Yeah, by demand, the boys are back after taking a summer off and circumnavigating the globe and attending all sorts of book signings and conferences. Mark the date, September 28th, and the return of Monday Night Monsters. Take a look.
In the reassuring light of day, it's easy to laugh off stories of ghosts and devils, goblins and vampires, and all the fearful, hungry creatures which haunted our childhood nightmares. But when darkness falls, there are a few among us who remain true skeptics. In the blackness of night, shadows come alive. Unknown sounds become sinister, and the crawling things of myth and folklore seem all too real. Join legend hunters Ronald Murphy and Christopher Rondina in the world of shadows this autumn for the return of Monday Night Monsters, as we once again explore the terrifying realm of things that go bump in the night. Season premieres September 24th at 8 p.m. on YouTube's Dead Air Full Spectrum.
A correction to that. It is actually September 26th, which is a Monday. Saturday Night Monsters has a nice ring to it, but not like Monday night. So that will be Monday night, September 26th. The correct promo is up on the Dead Air Full Spectrum YouTube page. Join Chris and Ron again. I know they've got something very special planned for their first episode, so tune in.
And tell everybody about our other wonderful shows that we have on here. And again, none of them, for the most part, are live investigations or even recorded investigations on a usual basis. It's normally incredible podcasts. But Ken, who else and what else do we have here on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel?
Well, we also feature Live from the Haunted Museum with Cody Desbian and Satori Hawes every other Thursday. And filling in on every other Thursday are Panoramic Perspectives with demonologist and investigator Carl L. Johnson and historian Elise Giamarco Carlson. So that's every other Thursday. And, of course, we're here on Sundays, and also Extremely Strange, a pre-recorded story where a guy in a baseball hat sitting in his office tells weird stories. So we've got a new one up there on the Dulce Alien War, and I've got one coming up that's a two-parter that's going to blow your mind. So look forward to that.
Nice. That's the important part of the reminder bell, guys, for the upcoming content. But you can only do that if you subscribe. And Ken, I don't know if you heard there, you said a guy in a weird baseball cap, or is it a weird guy in a baseball cap?
Both. A little bit of both. And not enough in either.
Just wanted to nail that. I also wanted to touch on something real quick before we bring Mike back on. And this was a comment somebody brought up, and I wanted to address it. George believes the black shadow crawler was a human ? Since he said he believes has never encountered a demon, why would a human be crawling like a spider? Just throwing questions, don't need the answer. You're getting an answer, Android Party. Um, it's I guess the only way I can really explain this is no different than anything else as an investigator that you get, which is your third eye, your instincts, your sixth sense about what it is that you're experiencing. I sensed no darkness. I sensed no demon with this. What I really came away from and what I thought in the process of is this individual, and yes, I thought it was a person, an energy that was human, could not walk. And when I ran back into that room, remember, it crawled on its elbows out, it crawled on its elbows back in. And I went into that room, and there was a wheelchair there, but it's just a prop. It was a hospital bed, and I looked all around, couldn't see anything, and it didn't dawn on me till several days later that I never looked up with the flashlight. I never, because they're always called, the ones that crawl on the ceiling. So I was not prepared for this experience, but it did not immediately in my mind go down the road. That's a demon crawling out and crawling back again. I won't even go down that tunnel that too many people will immediately look at. That it's got to be something dark and sinister. I think this is something that, from a darkness, perhaps is because it's suffering. They're suffering, and I hope that answers your question, at least from my perspective. Moving forward, though, we want to bring our very special guest. Ken, did you have something you wanted to add?
Absolutely not. Let's get Mike back in here.
All right. Bringing back from Trump City Paranormal, Mike is with us on this evening, continuing our second hour. You hanging in there all right, buddy? Did you replenish your drink or anything? Are you good to go?
I'm doing good. I got my drink. I got my vape. I'm good to go.
To be 27 years old again. All that energy, that unbridled passion. God bless you, my friend. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we've got a ton of questions for you, but wanted to open that up for you as well. And I know there's some questions from the chat that Ken had started. Did you have anything that you wanted to ask me or ask Ken? Again, Ken is a soothsayer. He is somebody who used to live in a cave, and people would go up and ask for his wisdom. So if you have any questions for us,
toss
please
them a gold coin after they get their fortune.
There you go.
Shall pass.
Smack the cane down on the ground.
Go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, I had a few that I wrote down here. I guess for the first one, do you believe that individuals can develop a psychic or a medium ability over time while investigating if they're open to it?
I'll go first. Joe Chin from Ghost Hunters International was just on with us and talked about the fact both he and his sister Christine have kind of moved on from just not only an investigative perspective, but also as mediums. And I have had experiences over the years of doing this where I felt like I was beginning to hone a skill. I was doing things, remote viewing and such, that I could not explain how the accuracy was there. I do think so. I think the more that you do this, the more you become in tune with your sixth sense, and the more that when you're investigating, you're able to walk in and decipher the energies of a spirit or spirits that are available out there. And there's nothing better to validate that than bringing out that equipment and getting that connection at the same time. Ken?
Yeah, I think that it's possible, but I don't think it's as widespread as we're led to believe sometimes. I think that you can become attuned to what you're doing after a period of time. You become a little bit more sensitive to locations, things like that. I don't know if you would call that psychic ability. I think it's just an innate sense that we all have because, we've all had that thing where you just don't feel right in a place and suddenly something happens and you say, wow, how did I know that? Mm-hmm. I think we just have the ability to pick up on energies. Where I get a little cynical at times is when people that I know just suddenly show up and say I'm psychic. It's like, what happened? I mean, last week you seemed to be fine. You were driving to UPS or whatever, and suddenly you've become psychic. I don't know if it's as easy as you can train your senses, as some people want to lead you to believe. But I've never been into any classes or anything like that, so I can't speak to that. But
No.
I
I'll tell
think
you this.
it's
Go ahead,
possible.
Ken.
I think it's possible, but I think sometimes it's overplayed a little bit.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Just to say, Mike, I knew Ken was going to say that.
There you go.
Just going that route. Uh, Go ahead.
Have you ever had a moment in your paranormal career or investigating that made you almost stop doing this entirely?
Mm. Yeah, but it had
Ooh.
nothing to do with the paranormal.
Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Ken.
Had more to do with the paranormal field and what I saw in front of me. It was just kind of like, I don't know if I want to be a part of this anymore. With some of the drama that's out there, and when it reaches you, because if you're not careful, they will drag you into something.
I felt that in
So
my
there were
soul.
times. I mean, I went through a period where twice a year I just, am I done with this? Do I have I proven everything to myself I need to know about this? But I, I'm continuing on, but under my own terms.
Hmm.
With what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Who I want to be with, who I don't want to be with. So yeah, I mean, I've had those thoughts, but it's never because I've been frightened away by something or had an attachment or anything like that.
Yeah. In a similar sense with me, it was the scariest part of the paranormal, which is people. When I still had a team back in the day, Port Orange Paranormal, we would do residential cases. And the conditions that I would see some of these people living in, and especially those who had children, just really started to tear me apart. It became emotionally exhausting. I mean, an investigation in itself is physically and emotionally exhausting. But when
Hmm.
you add into it people who either have ulterior motives, such as, well, there's a team coming in, maybe I'll make it on TV, to the aspect of seeing a child uh, with cat feces around the bed, dirty diapers in the sink, cigarette butts covering the entire coffee table.
Mm.
But the owner has, and the parent has a very, very detailed log of all the paranormal experiences. They have CDs, the videos that they took in their house. I mean, to an obsessive nature. And it did get me to end doing residential cases. But I think more than anything else, and if I were to bestow any type of wisdom upon you, Mike, it would be that what you're doing right now works out beautifully, so long as nothing that you happen to experience from a paranormal standpoint shuts you down. What you're doing is just right. You do not have somebody who is going to ruin the taste in your mouth about this field. You're doing it on your own for the most part. Yes, you bring in psychics like JD and Lisa. You have Ethan that comes along, does investigations with you. But you still can be able to say, I'm going to go on my own and do this one here. I'm going to go ahead and investigate this location, and try to make the connection myself. So here again, from the field standpoint, as Ken just said, there's never going to be a situation. Hell, if I had a place that was two houses down from me that was haunted, I'd be there every friggin' weekend and would love to do it. Constantly make that dialogue happen. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I'm in Florida, and the Conjuring House is in Rhode Island.
We're gonna have to get you up here, man.
We're trying. We're trying.
And I agree with what both of you said. I really do think it has more so to do with the people than it does the actual paranormal.
The living.
The field itself or the community, it's very questionable at times. And there has like almost every instance where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It's always boiled down to the people that I was either involved with or following on social media or hearing stories about. Paradrama is a term that I hear quite often. And it just got to the point for me. It's like, I'm gonna step back I got my one friend, Ethan. He's been with me through all of this basically since the beginning. I'm okay with, like, I'm open to meeting people and sharing experiences and things like that. But
Sure.
yeah, as far as, I don't know, like creating a team or doing these like huge collabs all the time, that's not what I got into this for. So it's nice to hear that there are other individuals who think almost exactly the way I do about it and just kind of want to investigate and, yeah, just investigate, you know?
Again, it shows that you're already advanced beyond your years, my friend.
This is
I
true.
try.
I had a.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Somebody want to jump in? Quick, go.
No, I was going to ask another question, but you go ahead.
Oh, you can ask another question, because what I want to do is I have one right back at you, and then I want to talk about some of these places that you've been to.
Yes.
Before we get out of here tonight, but you first.
Okay. This is the last one. It's more of like, it has to do with gear. Do you guys have any recorders that you recommend that aren't DR60s, so I can go get one?
Just Ken question.
Yeah. You can tell you're an investigator when you have. My recorder of choice is a Sony. Let me give you the model number on this. What is the model number on this? I think it's in ICX model. Yeah. I'm sorry, ICD SX750. Because it also has ability to. You can listen to things at a higher volume than anything in the room, and you can mark them and everything. The only downfall for this thing is an MP3 format, which is lossy format. So I usually convert to wave, which is more of a true sound, but it's got a high sampling rate and everything that you want in it. So yeah, it's pretty handy. You can carry it around. So that's my recorder of choice. I have 3 of them. So. But Sony, if you're listening, sponsorship. Okay.
No doubt.
No? Okay.
Yeah. I can't help you in that arena as much because I've kind of been out of the game again for quite some time. Caring for an elderly parent restricts me really from getting out and doing investigations I love. But I will say this, though, Mike, I constantly change out my recorders because my thought process is in locations, you can have 4 investigators go in to one location and investigator A is getting all the responses. Go to the next location or go back the next night and investigator C is getting that. So I think in the same sense with recorders, they may have a particular preference or particular frequency to which they're communicating that this recorder or that recorder would work better. The Panasonic debate will always be right there in our faces. We know that there is a lot of those devices out there that are errored, have been reported to be errored, and you will get contamination when you do playback. So it's all about being able to test and find the ones that work best for you. Let's take again Hinsdale House as an example, and you'd bring 4 different recorders, and it's only picking up on one. Next time I would go back there, I would use that recorder and see whether or not that's the consistency there. Next location, I'd bring all 4 recorders again.
Yeah, because I'm a huge tech nerd, so I love learning about new equipment, new methods with equipment. I'm always collecting gadgets and gears. I have like 12 recorders sitting in a drawer over here to my left. So I'm just curious to see what you guys have or any recommendations.
I think even if you use different types is fine, as long as you triangulate them in the room. Just sort of put them in different locations at the same volume level, and then see if one happens to pick up something the other doesn't, where it's louder, so you'll be able to pinpoint exactly where it came from. So you can focus a little bit more of attention. It's like, oh, it's over here in this corner of the room for some reason, so there's little things like that.
I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Even when you triangulate, experiment and point to the one on the far left side and say, can you go over to that one now and speak? Right. Park to the one on the right. Can you go over there and speak? And that denotes intelligence versus a residual. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things you can play around with. Same thing we've talked about before with your cell phone. you can walk into a place and ask and test to see whether or not these spirits are still part of collective consciousness, which is something for another discussion we can have. But to say, hey, I want you to photobomb my selfie. See if they understand what a photobomb is and what a selfie is. And if they're responding to something like that, then they are still part of the collective consciousness. They're not left in the 1970s, 80s, or 90s, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I never even thought of that. I'm gonna have to try that next time we go out.
Yeah.
Sure. Always playing with things. A question I have for you before we get into locations, because I wanted to talk a little about one of your favorite ones. But question I have for you, Mike, do you feel that in visiting these places and documenting them, that in some small way you're helping generations to not commit the same atrocities they have in the past by bringing attention to it? And I know that a lot of shows and a lot of, history shows from, like on the History Channel on Penhurst accomplish the same thing. But do you feel in some small way, by telling the history of this and trying to contact these souls and communicate with them, that, in some way you're helping us not to repeat the same mistakes over and over again? Like, look what these people went through. And then maybe somebody who's a paranormal enthusiast, but it's not a big history nerd like we are, you're bringing that awareness to them to be able to say, look what happened in the past. We don't want to be doomed to ever repeat it again. This is the way history was. Let's be better going forward.
Absolutely. I'm actually really glad that you asked me that, because that's a big reason why it took us so long to film Forest Haven and to it took 2 years to document all of that evidence and to piece it all together and make sense. And that series was going to be sort of like a turning point for the content, just temporarily, to emphasize on the history of not only that location, but all the other psychiatric facilities across America at that time, because it's terrible what we did to people, in the early 1900s leading up to the turn of the century. And I feel like, yeah, this stuff is gruesome. It's can make some people uncomfortable or unsettled, but that's the reality of what happened at these places. And if I can at least instill some of that knowledge into you and then focus on the paranormal investigation aspect of it, you sort of, maybe it's consciously or subconsciously getting burned into people's brains like, this is terrible. I wouldn't want my children or my children's children or even myself to go through stuff like this. And it's sort of, it spreads that message across all of the communities and people in the paranormal or even outside of the paranormal to, like you said, not repeat history and not put people through the same situations that we put them through when these places were in full swing operation. um, I don't think that I think it's really messed up, in my opinion, that the federal government like federally defunded these places in the 80s. I don't think that that was the right way of going about it. It needed significant reform and change. I mean, like a total 180 as far as how they treated people and their practices. But I think that by federally defunding these and leaving it in the state's hands, knowing that the states did not have the funds to keep these places running, it caused a mental health crisis throughout the entire United States. Now we're limited to what the states can afford or what private practitioners can do for their communities, and it's just tragic. It really is. And when you learn about the history of these places, it ties into the activity as well. You see why, like for this place, for instance, why we get so much activity. I mean, they were quite literally tortured in this place for their entire lives, and they just want to be heard and acknowledged. And I feel like if we can share that history with people and capture evidence, we're sort of getting the best of both worlds. Because I'm a huge mental health advocate, so I touch on that stuff in almost all of my videos.
Well, a lot of these places became overpopulated and had residents there, we'll use that term, who didn't belong there. I mean, back in those days, you could literally be institutionalized for disobeying your husband.
Yeah.
And that's true. That is not hyperbole on that. To give you a little bit of an idea of this particular location, I'm going to put up a picture. This is Forest Haven. It's a very, very daunting, intimidating building. Who is in some state of decay at this point. And
man, where'd you find that first picture? That's like early days of it closing down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it much worse shape than that now?
Oh God, yeah. That place is all but falling in on itself.
Well, let's give you a little bit of an idea of Mike inside Forest Haven. About a minute clip here, and some recordings on it. So let's go ahead and play that right now. All right, let's take that down, and we're back. So, I mean, obviously, anybody who's done this has been in places like that. You see, when they're not looked at, and it's easy to go in there and to, just raise hell. You got to be careful about those type of things when you go in there. I don't know what criteria you went through here, but for those of us who do stuff like that, you're always worried that you're going to run into some kind of psychotic homeless person when you go into those places. So you got to be very careful about that kind of stuff, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I take bear mace with me every time I go to these kind of locations. I take like super bright, like 1500 lumens flashlight that's this big. So, it doubles as sort of like a baton. Fortunately, we've been lucky enough, and I'm going to go ahead and knock on wood now, but we haven't ran into anybody like that yet. Most of the time when we encounter other people, it's always at a distance, and we tend to, I hate to say this, but scare them off before they even get close enough to us. We'll slam a door, like we'll make some kind of loud noise to freak them out so they go away, because we're not interested in, meeting people in abandoned hospitals. Like, it's not the place to meet people. The few times that I have ran across people and like there was no choice but to have some kind of interaction, they're usually people my age. They're just exploring, taking pictures. They're super cool. They're like, hey, what are you guys up to? Could you point us to like any cool spots or, things like that? So we've been really lucky so far. I haven't gone into enough abandoned buildings enough times to have that unfortunate or unlucky encounter with like a homeless guy or a crazy, whatever. In the event that I do, I'm almost considering, now that I'm thinking about it, I should probably just, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I should buy a pack of smokes as like a bribe and just be like, here you go, man, leave this alone, go away. But yeah, I'd have to apologize too for all the insanely obscene stuff that is all over that place. You can tell a ton of kids go there and graffiti all kinds of nonsense on the walls, but it would have taken me another 30 hours to censor out all that stuff. So I was just like, fair warning, the graffiti here is terrible. Just try to ignore it and pay attention to the ghost hunt.
But some of these other locations, Crescent Sanatorium, of course, the Hinsdale House we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Letchworth Village is a place that I visited when we were in Rockland County, New York, doing a series of investigations for documentaries. So We had one of the locals take us through. It was a fascinating place. Of course, Penhurst, Villisca,
Mm-hmm.
Wildwood Sanatorium, which is when I first saw it, I was kind of like, well, that's looks like my buddy Chris's house. Not very imposing, but certainly has is an active place by
Mm-hmm.
reputation. And here's one here, Kings Park. It's like, good Lord, man, how did you manage to navigate this thing?
By sheer force of will. We actually got up to the top of that.
Oh, yeah.
Where that graffiti is, we went all the way up and looked out down below. And yeah, it was a sight to behold for sure. But man, there's no elevator. So I'm sure you can imagine what it's like to go from the first floor up to I think there's 13 or 15 floors.
Right.
Is exhausting.
Are there any place in particular that, now I know that Forest Haven stays with you in terms of an investigation. And if you want to kind of expound on that as to why, please feel free. But is there any other place that was maybe exceeded your expectations? Whether it's any of those places I showed, or maybe a place that, we haven't talked about, where a lot of times they don't live up to expectations. A trip for me to Eastern State, for example. I'm sure there's a lot of things that happen there, but there were a couple of things that caught our attention, but it wasn't to the depth and scope of what you hear. And I know it's unreasonable to think if you're only there for 5 hours, you're going to experience everything that everybody has over 100 years. So I'm not saying that, but was there a place, maybe among those, or like I say, others, that you went into not expecting a lot, and you walked away a little bit surprised that there was more there than you did expect?
I would have to say for me, it was definitely the Villisca Axe Murder House.
Really?
I know, yeah, I know that there's a lot of history there and people investigate it all the time, get crazy evidence. But for me, I try not to go in with any expectations when it comes to any location because I don't know. I've always heard that that's the number one rule. You're not supposed to have any expectations with this. So that way, when you do have something happen, you leave pleasantly surprised. But yeah, the Axe House, because I thought it was kind of overhyped and, kind of like the Conjuring House situation, just people playing on stories. Granted, the history of what happened there is very real. It's very true. I mean, it was so insane at the time that it quite literally knocked the sinking of the Titanic off of national newspaper headlines. So it was a very real situation and a very sad, disturbing case. But I just expected it to be more of again, the whole fear mongering thing, just oh, there's something evil there and you're going to have a terrifying time and a terrifying experience. And I'm like, okay, I'll see that when I get there.
Right.
That place, that and Edinburgh Manor, because we investigated those back to back. We did Edinburgh Manor the night before and then drove 2.5 hours west and did the Axe House the very next night. Edinburgh Manor was kind of like the start of the change for me, but the Axe House really, really changed all of this for me.
I'm
I
going to
know.
assume that's because of what you already knew about the place. So I'm not, are you necessarily talking about something that you documented there, or just the general?
Just the whole experience of it. I mean, we had heard stories about how evil this place is, about because Johnny Hauser, he's the caretaker there, and he was telling us brief history about it. And he was like, this whatever's here will play tricks with you. It'll try and split you up. There's a lot of mental manipulation. It likes to prey on mentally stable people, which I thought that was a little disturbing. Not mentally unstable, but sound people it likes to mess with. And I mean, we were going outside every 30 minutes. We could not stay in that house for longer than an hour. And yeah, even now I get chills just thinking about it. It was such an overwhelming sensation being in there, and I was having thoughts that weren't my own. I was feeling things that weren't normally me. Normally I'm pretty chill guy. I like to have a good time, laugh, make others laugh. I felt like this burning rage the whole time I was in the house. And then we'd go outside, and within 5 or 10 minutes, it would subside. And every time we'd go back in, it would get a little worse and a little worse, to the point to where we didn't even stay the night there. At 2:30 in the morning, we packed up all of our gear and we went and paid for a hotel down the road. And that is the only place I have ever experienced that. I've never experienced it anywhere before or since then. And we've done pretty intense investigations after the Axe House. Like Forest Haven, I will pitch a tent in one of those abandoned buildings and spend the night there, no problem. And I know what's there. Like it's more than just spirits there. There's something very dark and heavy there, and I will gladly sleep in the building that it supposedly resides in. But there's something about the energy in the Axe House. I don't know if it's from like the years of seances and Ouija boards and investigators. And I mean, somebody might have brought something in or opened something up with all those sessions and all that energy constantly coming in and out. It feels like pure evil. And that's not something I can say that often. I mean, I'm very big on trying to break things down and debunk or rationalize what it could be, because there are spirits and energies that can like mimic demonic behavior or negative behavior, but it's not a demon. And I don't know. That place genuinely scares the hell out of me. Like we're supposed to be going back there this year and doing Sally and Axe House back to back. And I'm genuinely nervous. Like that house far exceeded my expectations as far as what a haunting could look like, or even what an evil haunting could look like.
I think that is such an underplayed part of this when a place develops a reputation. And we talked about this at the beginning of the show. When people come in with preconceived ideas and they perpetuate those things, I believe that the X factor could be us in bringing in this energy, because I'm going to this place and I'm going to tempt fate. So I'm going to bring a Ouija board. I'm going to do, some type of conjuring maneuver here. Or I'm going to ask questions that come from a particular point of view. And I think that it's infinitely possible that we as living human beings can bring a certain negativity with us that a place on that may be able to feed on. And you can literally manifest something there in terms of just the general vibe in the house, But what I want to do before I bring George in, I just wanted to get to this real quick too. When you go into, because this is an often asked question, do you have any type of, way you prepare for a case? I get that a lot. I really don't. I have a chocolate frosted donut and an iced coffee ritual before going in. Kind of a two-part question, Mike, before I get out of here. Number one is, how do you do the research you do and be able to check it at the door and not let suggestion play a role? Because obviously, going into Villisca, there was just something about the place. But typically, what do you go through in terms of, okay, this is a bad place, but I'm going to check it at the door? Because that's easier said than done sometimes. We're all human. And the second part of it is, as a spiritual person, do you have, hey, there's Cody. You're supposed to be on a plane to California. Get out of here. Is there something, I'm not saying it's a ritual where you surround yourself with light and carry crystals, but is there a way that you personally, and you don't even have to share this with us if it's personal, but is there a way you prepare yourself for, like, I'm about to step foot in a really bad place right now, so I got to stay, as you said, grounded? Is there a sort of like a process that you go through for that, mentally, spiritually, emotionally?
So for the first question, as far as research, I know this is going to seem pretty backwards to pretty much anybody listening to this, because you're supposed to go in with some kind of knowledge. But for me, I tend to do my research or cross-examination of evidence after I investigate a location. And the only reason for that is because I feel like that removes any sort of preconceived notions or any kind of expectations on what I'm going to find there. Right, right. And also, I don't know, it just adds a level of excitement and a new dynamic to investigating, because I feel like that's kind of the point of being a paranormal investigator. Like, you're supposed to go to these locations, find your own evidence, come up with your own conclusions, and then see if you can cross-examine that information or that evidence with other people in the field or other videos or whatever it may be, and see if anything matches up. Whereas if you do all this research and information, like digging for information prior, you kind of go in with like this mindset of, okay, well, this and that happened to so and so, and if it happens to me, then it's true, or if it doesn't happen to me, it's bogus. I mean, I don't know. There's just it's a fun dynamic to be able to go into these places almost totally blind. Like, I don't do no research at all. Like, I do a little bit. I'll dig into some of the history, what established its hauntings, any significance that happened on the land. Like, for Forest Haven, I did look into, how many people passed away there, certain treatments that were done to people, things like that. But as far as digging really deep in, I don't do that until after, because then if something happens to me while I'm there and I don't know anything about the place, and then I find out later on the same exact thing happened to 3 or 4 or 5 other people, it's like that sort of confirms it for me. Now I know that it wasn't my subconscious creating that haunting, or me sort of, I guess, rationalizing it as something that I already read about.
Right.
So I don't like to research until afterwards. And it's crazy how many times where Ethan and I have gone on investigations to places with little to no information about it and left with a lot of evidence that matched up with a majority of what people were already experiencing.
That's a solid approach too. So as far as preparing yourself, you don't go, sit in a salt cave or anything like that.
No. I mean, I definitely, again, because I am a spiritual person, I do believe that we are surrounded by energies and beings that both feed off of us and feed into us. So I do ask that if my guides are with me, if they can just have my back a little bit, open me up to communication, don't block anything from talking to me. Just allow whatever is going to happen in the night happen, and I'll deal with it when I get home. But I don't have like any ritual. I don't light Palo Santo and, smudge my house and all that stuff. I wear some tourmaline for grounding, and I just go in, and if something happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I can say with confidence, out of the probably 35 or 40 investigations that Ethan and I have been on, we've only ever had 2 locations give us absolutely nothing. Almost every investigation we go on, we get like a ton of EVPs or device activity, or we're having visual experiences or physical sensations. It's great. It's great to know that I can go into these places with somebody who is equally as spiritual and open to this as I am. And the energy there can see that. And they're like, okay, we can talk to these guys because they're not going to call us demons and try to smudge us out of here. It's sarcasm, but yeah, it feels good to know that the energy there is willing to communicate with us as much as we are with them.
Yeah,
Sure.
It is kind of neat. And I can tell you that, Mike, we've evolved again, the investigative procedures, things that we've done, and maybe in a future phone call, you and I would get into it a little bit more about collective consciousness. But we would go out to certain places, and I would pick 1 or 2 volunteers who I thought maybe had some ability, and would say, "Okay, I need you to step into a role. Who's the first person that comes into your mind? What's a woman? What's her name? Elizabeth." And we'd go through this whole process. And then we would bring the caretaker over and say, "Who was the woman who ran this place?" Caretaker would say, "It was a woman by the name of Elizabeth." And it was just awe-inspiring, not doing the research, but feeling the story from these spirits, or they were volunteering it to these individuals, and it just correlated to what was actually happening. So they were, in a sense, stepping into the role, stepping into the shoes of these spirits, or sharing those energies. And we'll talk about that at a future time.
I would
think
love
maybe
to. I
need a
love that
little experiment.
idea.
We have some questions very shortly here. We're going to be running out of time, but I wanted to get these in and see what you had. First of all, Ronald from Minnesota, EERT Radio. Have you ever had a family member visitation?
As far as I know, only one, and it was my stepbrother. He passed away roughly 6 years ago. And when I started investigating, I was doing stuff in my house, which that's supposedly like one of the rules. You're not supposed to do things in your house because you invite energies or things like that into the home that you don't want. But I'm hard headed. I don't listen. So I did it anyways. And I actually have it recorded. I believe, I don't know if it's on my TikTok anymore, but I have at least a clip of it somewhere on my phone. I set out an SB11 in my kitchen and the temperature sensor started going off. It was going up and down very rapidly, which isn't something that I'm used to seeing. Usually it goes in one direction or the other. And it was going back and forth. And I asked my stepbrother, I said, Chris, if that's you, could you move this temperature up one? And within like 10 seconds, it went up a whole degree. And I heard the spirit box say, I took it up. And then I said, was that you? And he's like, yes. Did you like that? And that's the only time that's ever happened. We had a medium actually come to the house and she did a walkthrough and she was telling us about the different energies here. But one thing that she had told us or told me was that he tends to leave flowers, or not flowers, sorry, feathers in places where he wants you to know that he's with you. And it's always in the most random places. And for the first like 2 or 3 years that he was gone, I would walk out front. There'd be a feather right at the door. I'd get out at the grocery store. There'd be a feather. And it's just like he's always somehow, some way letting us know, like, hey, I'm okay. Don't worry about me. I'm here. I'm watching over you. Just take it easy.
It's important to really acknowledge, and I think that my advice I can give to you is this: I lost a team member quite some time ago. Amanda was killed in a car crash, and she's been around ever since. And I can tell you, as you said, you have guides. I know I have guides, and my house is active. And I think part of it is because of communication work that I've done. A little bit in the house, mostly in the backyard when I was doing spirit box sessions for the show. And anytime I felt an uneasiness, I would just basically tell my guys, get him, get him. He's not supposed to be in here. Kick him out. And my house, I call it the house of Zen because it's extremely peaceful. But from time to time, you'll get those sensations. It's part of the job. It's risk, and we understand that. And so sometimes, even if you do all the practices that I've been told not to do things at home, you still wind up getting attachments and things that will follow you back. And it's just doing everything possible to make sure that you're safe. That's the important part of it. Next question here is from Android Purity. Says, hey, Mike, as a fellow Marylander, I'd love to know your favorite Maryland location you've investigated and what Maryland location you most wish you got access to.
My favorite location, easily, without a doubt, Forest Haven, just because of the extensive history that we have with that place and everything that I've learned about it. It's a wild place. Like it's nothing. It's unlike anything else that I've experienced since doing this. It truly is like just one of those like one of a kind, super unique, unforgettable haunts that will stay with me for the rest of my life. I mean, it's the reason why I do what I do now. I became a paranormal investigator because of Forest Haven. So I wish you could get in there now. They're doing some stuff with the land as of recent, which just it breaks my heart because we were trying to film a 4-part series there and we only got to chapter 1 before they decided that they were going to do what they do with the place. It's not being torn down, but it's like really, really hard to get back there now. As far as locations that I would like to investigate, there's this museum or this hall. I have to look it up. I can't remember the name, but it's in Towson, Maryland, which is about 25 minutes away from me. This huge historical, it used to be a manor for a very wealthy family back in like the 1800s. And now it's owned by the Historical Society and it's a museum. And I don't know if they would be open to allowing investigations, but I hear that it's incredibly haunted. And I've read some stories online about like the security guards having experiences, the caretakers having experiences. Actually, I kind of want to look it up real quick just because I want to say the name of it.
Well, while you're looking that up, one of the things that I wish we had more accessibility to, and I think it's turning that way, are these more organized locations, rather than abandoned buildings and broken glass. And I mean, there are contaminants beyond belief with regards to animals and nature and weather.
Mhm.
But some of them, such as Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, where they are completely renovating the place, and it's very, very nice,
Mhm.
but it's very, very haunted. Those are the great locations. Villisca Axe Murder House being another.
It's also very expensive.
That it is.
I found it, by the way. It's Hampton Hall in
Okay.
Towson. I don't know if this will show up, but
Yep, we can see it. Hang on, let me go
beautiful
full screen on
location.
here. There we go.
Beautiful location, and apparently
Nice.
very, very haunted.
Wow.
So that is one place I would love to get into. It's very close by home, and it's got a ton of history. It goes back like I think early 1800s, and it was like generationally owned by family up until the early 1900s before it eventually was willed off to the state, and then the state preserved it as a historical museum.
Nice.
So I'd love to get in there. If anybody that lives in Maryland or knows anybody that works at the Hampton National Historic Site watching this, hit me up.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've only got a few minutes left here for the end of the show. As we bring Ken back on to the screen, I would guess the most important thing, we're coming up on the Halloween time frame. Charm City Paranormal always has something in the works. What's coming up for you in the next couple of months?
Oh man. So I actually just announced it tonight in my Q&A video, but starting October 1st, every weekend leading to the beginning of November, we're going to be leading paranormal tours at this very haunted, very historic theater in Laurel, Maryland.
Nice.
That is now a haunted house / escape room attraction. We're going to investigate that actually this coming week. We have our return to Crescent in 2 days. I'm going back to do like a Crescent Part 2. And I'm hoping Axe House and Sally House if it fits in the schedule, but I don't know. We'll just have to see. But yeah, giving out ghost tours in Laurel. If you guys go to my socials or go to YouTube, you can get tickets and come out and investigate with us.
While you're in Atchison, Kansas, let me know because I might be able to hook you up with a couple of people out there that go beyond the Sally House. So,
I will definitely keep that in mind.
I have been to Maryland, Baltimore, one of my favorite places. Love to hang around the Inner Harbor. Investigated one place there, the Admiral Fell Inn.
Oh, you got to investigate that?
Yeah, that's the actual name of it, by the way, out there.
Yeah.
It's Admiral Fell Inn, and apparently there was a murder in one of the rooms. We stayed in it. We had a good time. It was a nice, quiet night. Very relaxing. Just one of those nights. Nobody showed up, which was fine with my wife.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, we were all out of time here, but I have to honestly say it's been an enjoyable time talking with you tonight. We wish you the greatest of success, both with your channel and your other social media pages, but continued success here in the paranormal. I think you will go very, very far without the drama involved in the field. Just stay true to yourself, and I think you'll do wonderfully.
Likewise, gentlemen, and thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure meeting you guys and getting a chance to talk with you and pick your brains a bit. I hope we stay in touch, and this definitely is not the last time you'll hear from me.
Yeah, hit me up on a text, like we said before, and we'll try to do something with schedules here. And,
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to text you as soon as I get off of here.
Great. Sounds good, man. Thank you for so much for coming. And as George says, let me just echo it. Continued success to you. Stay on your path. It's a good
Thank you,
one.
gentlemen. I
And,
appreciate it
and
so
remember, Ken likes being texted about 3 a.m., so that's the best time to do that.
much. Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
We are all out of time, guys. Want to thank you so much. We will see you again next Sunday, same time, 8 p.m. You've been watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.